She donated my baby photos for a dog's aesthetic. That's what my sister said, wearing my robe in what used to be my childhood bedroom, now repainted pastel blue with a $900 castle-shaped dog bed where my twin bed used to be. My debate medals, my signed yearbooks, dumped in the attic. The worst part? My parents helped her do it. "You haven't lived here in years," Mom said, like absence meant erasure. I wanted to scream. Instead, I smiled. Because while they were decorating for Waffles' TikTok brand deals, they forgot one thing. The deed to the house has my name on it. And by law, if I live here for 49 uninterrupted days, the house is mine. But before we begin, let me know where in the world you're watching from today. It's always fascinating seeing who's joining us from around the world. My name is Emily Gardner, and I'm 33 years old. From my Seattle apartment, I spend most evenings scrolling past Instagram photos of my younger sister Julia's perfect life back home in Cedar Falls. My parents, Tom and Marie Gardner, beam in every shot with their favorite daughter and her Pomeranian Waffles, while I haven't visited in 2 years. My fingers tensed around my phone when Mom called yesterday, her voice dripping with that syrupy sweetness that always means trouble. The dust-covered photo on my bookshelf shows my late grandmother Sarah holding my hand at graduation, the only one who saw past Julia's spotlight to notice me. Granny left this world with unfinished business, I'm sure of it. My throat tightens each time I think of Mom's words. "You won't believe what we did with your room." But let me start from the beginning. The late November chill bit through my coat as I dragged my suitcase up our familiar brick walkway. I hadn't told anyone I was coming, figured I'd surprise them, maybe catch a glimpse of whatever improvements they'd made to my room before the staged reveal at Thanksgiving. You know that feeling when you're about to witness something awful? Like watching a car crash in slow motion? I used my old key, the brass worn smooth from years of sneaking in past curfew. The foyer smelled different, some fancy diffuser Julia probably promoted on her lifestyle blog. Family photos lined the walls, documenting Julia's greatest hits, dance recitals, pageant crowns, her college graduation. I noticed the gaps where my achievements used to hang. My feet carried me upstairs automatically, muscle memory from thousands of trips to my sanctuary. But when I reached the second floor, I stopped cold. The door to my bedroom stood open, and for a moment, I thought I'd walked into the wrong house. The walls, my walls that used to be covered in concert posters and debate team medals, were painted a sickly pastel blue. My twin bed? Gone. In its place sat a custom-made dog bed shaped like a miniature castle, complete with turrets and a tiny drawbridge. Rhinestone-studded food bowls gleamed on a marble feeding station. Even the curtains had been replaced with gauzy things covered in paw prints. "Oh my God, you're here early!" Julia's voice made me jump. She lounged against the doorframe in my old gray robe, the one Mom gave me for Christmas 3 years ago. Isn't it amazing? Waffles absolutely adores his suite. My throat closed up. Suite? This is my bedroom. Was your bedroom. Julia sipped from a mug that read Daddy's Girl in glittery script. I mean, you haven't lived here in, 10 years? And Waffles needed his own space for my content creation. The lighting is perfect for his morning routine videos. I stepped deeper into the room, searching for any trace of my life. Where are my things? My books, my photos. Mom boxed up whatever looked important. She waved vaguely toward the attic. The rest we donated. It's all about maintaining the aesthetic now, you know? You ever feel like you're speaking a completely different language than someone? Like the words coming out of your mouth might as well be alien sounds? You donated my things? My voice cracked. Without asking? Emmy, don't be dramatic. Julia rolled her eyes. It's not like you were using any of it. Besides, this makeover got amazing engagement on TikTok. My followers are obsessed with Waffles' castle bed. Right on cue, the little white puffball pranced in, wearing a bow tie that probably cost more than my monthly grocery budget. He jumped onto his throne, because of course the castle had a throne, and yapped at me like I was the intruder. I needed air. Pushing past Julia, I fled downstairs to the kitchen. The familiar yellow walls had been painted grayish, and even the ancient cookie jar where Granny used to hide treats for me was gone. In its place sat a rotating display of Julia's sponsored protein powders. Later that evening, after a tense dinner where Mom gushed about Julia's latest brand deals and Dad nodded proudly, I headed back upstairs. My old sleeping bag lay rolled out in the guest room. Apparently, Waffles needed the main guest suite for his winter wardrobe. That's when I heard it. Julia's voice drifted through her partially open door as she talked on the phone. I know, right? She's being so weird about it. A pause. Whatever. The whole house is going to be mine soon anyway. Mom and Dad basically promised they just need to handle the paperwork. She laughed. I mean, it's not like Emily was ever going to do anything with it. She can barely manage an apartment in Seattle. I stood there, frozen, as my sister's words sank in. The room, the house, my entire childhood. They were erasing me piece by piece. And Julia? She was already planning her victory lap. Remember how I mentioned that car crash feeling? This was the impact. I needed somewhere to breathe. Somewhere they hadn't stripped bare and redecorated. The attic. Julia would never climb those steep stairs in her designer loungewear. She'd been scared of the spider since we were kids. The pull cord creaked as I tugged it down, and that familiar musty smell washed over me. You know that distinct attic scent? Like old books and mothballs and secrets? Our attic always smelled exactly like that, even in summer. My phone's flashlight beam caught dust motes swirling through the air as I hauled myself up. Cardboard boxes and plastic bins formed shadowy mountains in the cramped space. Mom's neat handwriting labeled everything: Christmas decor, tax records, Julia's baby clothes. Of course, those were kept. I spotted a box marked Emily's school shoved behind a broken exercise bike. What I really wanted was Granny's old photo albums. She'd been the only one who consistently took pictures of me. Action shots from debate tournaments, candids of me reading in the window seat, proper portraits where she made me feel beautiful instead of awkward. The kind of photos that never made it to the family wall downstairs. Moving deeper into the attic, I spotted a promising box labeled Xmas 2007. That was the year Granny hosted her last Christmas before the stroke. As I reached for it, my elbow knocked against something that slid down behind it with a soft thump. It was an envelope. Not the modern white kind, but that thick, creamy paper they used to use for important things. My breath caught when I saw the handwriting. Those elegant loops and swirls I'd recognize anywhere. Granny's penmanship. The envelope was addressed simply, "For Emily Rose Gardner. Private." My hands shook as I carefully broke the seal. Inside, I found several sheets of legal paper, yellowed at the edges but still crisp. The first page made my heart stop. Deed of trust property. At 1487 Maple Lane, Cedar Falls, Illinois. There in black and white, dated 14 years ago, was my name. Not Julia's. Mine. Granny had put the house in trust for me when I was barely 19. But that's impossible, I whispered to the darkness. Mom and Dad own the house. I kept reading, pages rustling in my trembling fingers. The language was dense with legal terms, but certain phrases jumped out. Sole beneficiary, upon meeting conditions, transfer of full ownership. Then I hit the clause that changed everything. Final ownership shall transfer to Emily Rose Gardner upon completion of continuous residence at the property for a period of no less than 49 days, to be fulfilled before December 31st of her 33rd year. 49 days. Before December 31st of my 33rd year. This year. I fumbled for my phone, nearly dropping it in my rush to check the date. November 13th glowed back at me. A quick calculation made my stomach flip. I had exactly enough time. If I started tomorrow. The implications hit me in waves. The house was meant for me. Had been meant for me since I was 19. But Mom and Dad either never knew or had hidden it from me. And now Julia was making plans to claim it all for herself. More papers slipped from the envelope. Bank statements, tax records, even photos of Granny signing the deed with her lawyer present. She'd planned this meticulously, protected it, protected me. My phone buzzed, making me jump. A text from Julia. Mom says dinner's at 7. We're celebrating my new brand deal with that luxury pet food company. Don't be late this time. I looked at the deed in my hands, then at my sister's message. All those years of being pushed aside, erased, treated like an afterthought. All those times Julia got exactly what she wanted while I was told to be practical, be patient, be less. But Granny had seen me, really seen me, and she'd left me a way to fight back, if I was brave enough to take it. I carefully folded the papers and tucked them into my jacket pocket. Downstairs, I could hear Julia's distinctive laugh, probably practicing her social media persona. Mom called up the stairs about dinner. 49 days. I had 49 days to reclaim what was mine. The next morning, I dragged my suitcase down from the attic and wheeled it into the guest room before anyone else was up. You know that feeling when you're doing something completely justified but your stomach's still in knots? Yeah, that. I'd barely finished hanging my first blazer when Mom appeared in the doorway, still in her silk robe, coffee mug frozen halfway to her lips. Emily, what are you doing? Moving in for a while? I kept my voice casual, like this was the most natural thing in the world. Thought it would be nice to spend the holidays together. Really reconnect. The mug lowered slowly. But your job in Seattle? Remote work's amazing these days. I smoothed a wrinkle from my pants. My apartment lease is month to month, and honestly, I miss home. That last part wasn't entirely a lie. I did miss home, just not the version they'd turned it into. Mom's face did that thing where she's trying to process something that doesn't fit her script. We haven't prepared anything. The guest room isn't. It's perfect, I cut in, remembering how this room still smelled exactly like it did when I was 10 and would sneak in here to read. I don't need much. She opened her mouth, closed it, then hurried downstairs. Within minutes, I heard her urgent whispers to Dad in the kitchen. Julia didn't emerge until almost noon, wearing designer pajamas and that entitled expression she'd perfected by age 6. What's happening? Emily's staying with us, Mom said like she was announcing a minor illness. For how long? Julia's voice went sharp. I arranged my face into my best corporate smile. Through the holidays, at least. Maybe longer if it feels right. But Mom, Julia's foot actually stamped. What about my content schedule? I need the whole house for filming. We'll figure something out, sweetie, Mom soothed, while Dad suddenly became very interested in his newspaper. Remember those first few days at a new job when everyone's still polite but you can feel the tension building? That's what it was like. Except instead of office politics, it was my sister accidentally bumping into me in hallways and muttering "attention seeker" under her breath. 3 days in, Dad started his passive-aggressive campaign. I woke up to find my space heater unplugged. Just trying to keep the power bill reasonable, he said when I confronted him, not meeting my eyes. You understand, being practical and all? I did understand. I understood exactly what they were doing. The following week, Mom escalated to weaponized chores. She dropped a mountain of dirty laundry at my feet on the stairs, including Julia's workout clothes and what looked like Waffles' bed covers. Since you want to live here, she snapped, start acting like family. I carried that laundry up to my room, shut the door, and pulled out the deed from its hiding spot in my laptop case. Granny's handwriting blurred a little as I blinked back tears. But I didn't cry. Instead, I started a calendar on my phone. 42 days to go. Julia's social media empire didn't stop for family drama. Every morning, she'd take over the living room for her authentic morning routine videos. I'd watch from the kitchen as she performed her carefully curated life, complete with product placements and that signature giggle she'd developed sometime after I moved away. Swipe up for my favorite morning smoothie recipe, she chirped to her phone one morning. Then, the second she stopped recording, God, Emily, do you have to breathe so loud? You're ruining my content. I took an extra loud sip of coffee. The worst part wasn't the cold shoulder from Dad or Mom's dramatic sighs. It wasn't even Julia's constant jabs. It was watching them all act like I was the unreasonable one for wanting to be here. Like I was disrupting their perfect family by simply existing in their space. One night, I overheard Mom on the phone with Aunt Sarah. I don't know what's gotten into her. She just showed up. No warning, no explanation. Julia's being so patient, but you know how sensitive she is. I gripped the deed in my pocket and thought about Granny. She must have known. Must have seen exactly how this would play out. Why else leave such specific instructions? 49 days. Not a month, not 60 days. 49 exactly. You know that moment when people stop pretending to be nice? When they show you exactly who they are? Well, my family didn't just drop their masks. They threw them in the fireplace and danced around the ashes. It started with the lights. I'd been typing away on my laptop one evening when everything went dark. Not just my room, the entire guest wing plunged into blackness. Circuit breaker must have tripped, Dad called up, way too cheerfully. We'll look into it tomorrow. Tomorrow turned into 3 days of working by battery-powered lanterns, while they claimed the electrician was booked solid. I started taking photos of everything, the dead outlets, the perfectly functioning lights in Julia's wing, the broken breaker box that Dad had obviously switched off himself. Then came the cruise bombshell. "Oh, Emily!" Mom's voice dripped with artificial sweetness one morning. "The most amazing thing happened. Remember Dad's colleague Thomas? He had to cancel his Caribbean cruise last minute, offered us his tickets at a steal." I glanced up from my coffee. "During Christmas?" "We leave tomorrow," she beamed. "Such short notice, I know, but you understand. You'll probably want to head back to Seattle while we're gone. The house gets so cold when it's empty." I smiled back, just as sweet. "Don't worry about me. I've got plenty of blankets." The moment they left, Julia went into overdrive. I woke up to strange voices downstairs. Some woman in expensive-looking athleisure was walking around with a measuring tape and tablet. "The whole wing will be your closet space," she was saying. "We can start demo next week." "Excuse me?" I appeared at the top of the stairs. "Who are you?" Julia's face flickered with annoyance before switching to her vlog smile. "Emily, this is Marissa, my interior designer. We're just planning some updates." "In a house you don't own?" "Don't be difficult," Julia snapped. "Mom and Dad already approved everything." That night, I ordered 3 nanny cams and started a detailed log of every incident in a secure Dropbox folder. Call me paranoid, but something told me I'd need proof later. Between clips of Julia's designer making unauthorized visits and screenshots of passive-aggressive texts from my parents, that folder grew fat with evidence. I also began researching estate lawyers. Quiet Google searches during my lunch breaks. Careful notes taken on my phone instead of my laptop. The deed felt like it was burning a hole in my bag, but I didn't dare leave it anywhere in the house. Christmas Eve arrived with a thin layer of snow and thick layer of tension. Mom and Dad had cut their cruise short. Another lucky coincidence they didn't bother explaining. I was working at the dining room table, surrounded by spreadsheets and sticky notes, when Mom stormed in from their early return. "Still here?" Her voice could have frozen hell. "On Christmas Eve? Hello to you too, Mom. Don't you dare take that tone with me." She slammed her purse down. "What do you think you're doing? Playing house? Trying to prove some point?" I kept my voice steady. "I'm working. In my home." "Your home?" She laughed, an ugly sound I'd never heard before. "This was never your home. You left us, remember? Ran off to Seattle without a backward glance." "I moved for my career," I said. "That's what adults do." "You abandoned your family," she was shouting now. "And now you think you can just waltz back in and take over? Your grandmother would be ashamed." The mention of Granny hit like a slap. "Don't you dare bring her into this. She wanted this house to stay in the family, with people who care about it. People who'd be here. Julia has plans for this place, real plans. You'll never own this house, Emily. Never." My hands shook as I gathered my papers. The worst part? She believed every word. In her mind, I was the villain, the prodigal daughter coming back to steal poor Julia's birthright. I made it to my old room before the tears started. Through the wall, I could hear Julia's latest TikTok. Christmas Eve home tour. Don't forget to like and follow for more lifestyle content. Standing there in what used to be my sanctuary, now painted in pastels and scattered with dog toys, something inside me cracked. You ever have that moment when you realize the story you've been told about your life is a complete lie? Yeah, this was mine. Couldn't sleep. Who could, with Julia's Christmas playlist thumping through the walls? Around midnight, I crept downstairs, seeking quiet and maybe a glass of wine. The house felt different in the dark, more like I remembered from childhood before everything went wrong. The fireplace still worked, at least. I curled up on the ancient leather ottoman, letting the flames paint shadows across the floor. Remember those late nights when you're so tired you can barely think, but sleep feels impossible? That's where I was, staring up at Granny's portrait above the mantel. She'd always been there, watching over the living room in her pale blue sweater. Silver hair swept into that elegant twist she managed even in her 80s. The same portrait that had hung there since I was little, collecting dust nobody bothered to clean. "What am I supposed to do?" I whispered. The tears came again, but different this time, quiet ones that felt more like giving up than fighting back. That's when I noticed it. A corner of something pale, just barely visible behind the frame's edge. Probably nothing. Just my exhausted brain looking for answers where there weren't any. But I stood on the ottoman, steadying myself against the mantel. The frame was heavier than I expected, layers of dust coming away on my fingers as I carefully lifted it forward. There, wedged in the space between canvas and frame, was an envelope. My hands shook so badly I almost dropped it. The paper was yellowed, corners soft with age, but the words were clear. For her eyes only, in Granny's unmistakable handwriting. The same elegant script that had addressed birthday cards every year, even after I moved away. I sank back onto the ottoman, heart thundering. The envelope wasn't sealed, just tucked closed, waiting. Inside was a single sheet of paper, dated exactly 2 weeks before she passed. "My dearest Emily," it began. I had to pause, pressing my palm against my mouth to keep quiet. Even now, seeing my name in her handwriting brought her voice back so clearly. "If you're reading this, then you've found the deed. Good girl. I knew you would. You always were the clever one, though your parents never seemed to notice. I need you to understand something very important. That trust arrangement was always meant for you. Not Julia, not anyone else. You, my eldest granddaughter. They'll try to tell you different stories. They'll say I changed my mind, or that I meant it for the whole family, or that you don't deserve it. Don't believe them. I watched how they treated you, how they pushed you aside for Julia's dramatics. I saw the light in your eyes dim a little more each time they chose her happiness over yours. This house knows who it belongs to. You were the one who helped me plant the lilac bushes, who organized my recipe cards, who sat with me during storms when the power went out. You were the one who cared about its heart, not just its walls. The trust requirements are specific for a reason. 49 days of residence before your 33rd birthday will prove you want more than just property. You want home. The home I always tried to give you, even when others wouldn't. Keep this letter safe, sweetheart. Keep it with the deed. And remember, you are exactly where you belong. All my love, Granny." I read it 3 times, tears falling onto the paper before I could stop them. Each word felt like armor sliding into place, like puzzle pieces clicking together. All those years of doubt, of wondering if I was wrong to feel overlooked. Granny had seen it all, had planned for this moment. My hands steadied. My breathing calmed. The house felt different now, like it was standing with me instead of against me. I took a photo of the letter with my phone, then carefully folded both deed and letter into their envelopes. The portrait went back exactly as it had been, keeping our secret safe behind its dusty frame. Tomorrow would be Christmas Day, full of fake smiles and barbed comments. But tonight? Tonight, I knew exactly what to do next. I pulled up my laptop and opened my browser to estate lawyers near me. In the search bar, I typed, "Inheritance Trust Verification Illinois," and hit enter. The morning after Christmas hit different. You know that feeling when you've been carrying something heavy for so long you forget what standing straight feels like? Then suddenly the weight lifts and your whole body remembers its strength? That's what finding Granny's letter did for me. I was up before dawn, the house still quiet except for Waffles snoring in his castle bed down the hall. The kitchen smelled like yesterday's cinnamon rolls and disappointment. I made coffee, strong enough to power through what needed doing, and settled at the breakfast nook with my laptop. The deed and letter lay spread before me like battle plans. I smoothed them carefully, checking every corner for tears before sliding them into my portable scanner. The familiar whir brought back memories of helping Granny organize her paperwork, the way she'd tap her fingernail on the table while waiting for each page to process. "Patience, dear," she'd say. "Good things come to those who document properly." My hands trembled slightly as I composed the email. 3 attachments: the trust deed, the residence clause, and Granny's handwritten confirmation. Subject line: urgent trust verification required. I'd researched local estate attorneys until midnight, finally selecting Margaret Chen. Her reviews mentioned expertise in family property disputes and quick response times. I hit send at 7:43 a.m. By 9:15, while I was still nursing my second coffee, her reply landed in my inbox. My throat went dry as I opened it. "Ms. Gardner, this appears to be a valid trust arrangement with clear intent and specific activation requirements. The residence clause creates an interesting timeline given your age. I have availability this afternoon for a video consultation. We should discuss filing options immediately, as the December 31st deadline is critical for preserving your claim. Please see attached retainer agreement." I signed the documents electronically before my hands could shake again. The consultation was set for 2 p.m. You'd think plotting to claim your rightful inheritance would make it hard to act normal through breakfast and lunch. But when you've spent your whole life being invisible, wearing a calm face while your insides churn is second nature. I helped Mom put away Christmas decorations, nodded at Julia's endless TikTok drama, and waited. Margaret Chen was exactly what I needed: sharp, direct, and completely unfazed by family drama. "The trust is solid," she confirmed over video chat. "Your grandmother's addendum removes any ambiguity about intended inheritance. If you maintain continuous residence through December 31st, we'll file immediately to activate the clause." I signed the final papers at 4:52 p.m. Time to rip off the Band-Aid. Dad was already at the dining table when I came down for dinner, reading glasses perched on his nose as he scrolled through his phone. Mom bustled around with serving bowls while Julia documented her cozy family dinner aesthetic for her followers. I waited until everyone had filled their plates. The pork roast smelled amazing. Mom always stress-cooked when she was angry about something. Soon she'd have a real reason. "I need to tell you something," I said, setting down my cider glass. "I've retained legal counsel regarding the house." Dad's fork clattered against his plate. "You what?" "I found Granny's trust deed. And her letter confirming I'm the intended heir." My voice stayed steady, though my pulse hammered in my throat. "My attorney filed the paperwork this afternoon." Julia's face went from confused to horrified to rage in about 3 seconds flat. "You're lying. Granny would never—" "The trust is in my name," I cut in. "Has been since I was 14. All I need is 49 days of residence before December 31st. "Which is why you came back," Mom whispered. The ice in her voice could have frozen hell. "You manipulative little—" "I came back because you gave my room to a dog." The words shot out before I could soften them. Everything else just helped me see clearly. Dad's face had gone an alarming shade of purple. He took a swig of cider, choked, and spent the next minute coughing while Mom pounded his back. Julia shoved her chair back so hard it toppled over. "I can't believe you'd do this to me. To us. After everything." She didn't finish, just stormed out. The front door slammed hard enough to rattle the windows. Mom wouldn't look at me. Dad wouldn't stop looking at me, like he was seeing a stranger wearing his daughter's face. My phone buzzed. Confirmation from Margaret Chen that the claim had been officially filed. 11:47 p.m. I'd done it. No going back now. The first notification popped up around 6 a.m., then another, and another. By the time I stumbled downstairs for coffee, my phone was vibrating nonstop with social media alerts. Julia had been busy overnight. There she was on TikTok, mascara artfully smeared, her crying lighting ring perfectly positioned. "I never thought I'd have to make this video," she sniffled, dabbing under her eyes with a monogrammed handkerchief. "But my own sister, my flesh and blood, is trying to steal our family home." I watched, grip tightening on my mug, as she spun a tale that would have made soap opera writers proud. How she'd sacrificed everything to help care for our parents. How she'd always dreamed of raising her future children in her childhood home. How I'd abandoned the family only to return and legally attack them. The video already had 200,000 views. Her followers were flooding the comments with heart emojis and "Stay Strong Queen" messages. You know that feeling when your stomach drops and your skin goes cold all at once? That's what hit me as I scrolled through the responses. Strangers calling me toxic, narcissistic, evil. Some even tracked down my professional social media accounts to leave hate comments. My phone buzzed, Margaret Chen calling. "Emily, I assume you've seen the video?" She sounded remarkably calm. "Don't respond directly. We need to be strategic about this." "She's lying," I said, my voice shaking, making me look like some kind of monster. "Then we show the truth. Send me everything you've documented, especially any evidence of her discussing the house before you filed the claim." I opened my laptop right there at the kitchen counter. Remember that overheard phone call where Julia bragged about getting the whole house? I had it recorded on my nanny cam, plus screenshots of her Instagram stories mocking people who think inheritance is earned while lounging in my old room. The cherry on top? A TikTok she'd posted last month showing off Waffles' new castle suite, my converted bedroom, with the caption, "Sorry, not sorry. Sis needed the upgrade more than you did." Margaret reviewed everything within an hour. "This is perfect. I'll draft a cease and desist for the defamatory claims, but first, let's set the record straight." We compiled a simple response video. No tears, no dramatic music. Just me, sitting calmly in Granny's old reading chair, laying out the facts. The deed, the trust clause, Julia's previous posts. "I'm not trying to hurt anyone. I concluded. I'm just claiming what was legally left to me. I also shared screenshots of Julia's most damaging posts in my Instagram stories, letting her own words tell the tale. The response was immediate. Julia's comment section filled with people calling out her manipulation. T-channels picked up the story, analyzing her history of entitled behavior. By lunch, 3 of her major brand partnerships had paused for review. Julia burst into the kitchen around 2, face blotchy from real tears this time. "Take it down!" she screamed, waving her phone. "Do you know what you've done? Luxury loungewear just canceled our spring campaign." "You started this," I said quietly, not looking up from my laptop. "I just finished it." "By destroying my career?" Her voice cracked. "My followers trusted me. Maybe they shouldn't have." She stormed out, but not before I heard her muttering about fixing this. 10 minutes later, her viral crying video disappeared. So did most of her recent posts about the house. The damage was done, though. Her engagement numbers were tanking. Comments on her older content started questioning everything. Was her authentic morning routine staged? Did she really use those skincare products she promoted? How much of her life was actually real? Margaret called again that evening. "Good work staying above the fray. But don't get comfortable. This kind of public exposure often makes people desperate. Keep recording everything." She was right. I could feel it in the air at dinner, thick with unspoken threats. Mom wouldn't even pass me the salt directly. Dad kept clearing his throat like he was working up to something. And Julia? She just pushed food around her plate, thumbs tapping furiously under the table. They were planning something. I just didn't know what. December 30th crawled by like molasses in winter. I spent most of it pacing the guest room, double-checking the documents Margaret had prepped for tomorrow's hearing. The trust deed, Granny's handwritten letter, proof of my continuous residence since November 14th. Everything we needed was there, but my hands wouldn't stop shaking. You ever notice how the hours before something huge seem to stretch forever? Like time itself is holding its breath? Down the hall, I heard the hollow thump of cardboard boxes being filled. Mom and Dad had started packing 3 days ago. "Just in case," they'd said, not meeting my eyes. The house felt different now, charged with a strange electricity. Even the familiar creak of the stairs seemed to whisper, "Change is coming." My phone buzzed with a text from Margaret. "Documents received by clerk. Judge Peterson reviewing tonight." Looking strong. I pressed my forehead against the cool window glass, watching snow dust the front yard. The same view I'd had growing up, watching for the school bus or waiting for Dad to come home from work. Remember when every window in your childhood home felt like a movie screen playing memories? Julia hadn't spoken to me in days. Her car was always gone before I woke up, returning long after dinner. The few times we crossed paths, she'd turn abruptly or duck into another room. The silence hurt more than her earlier screaming matches. That night, I barely slept. Every time I dozed off, I'd jerk awake, checking my phone for the time. At 6 a.m., I gave up and showered, choosing my most professional blouse for the video hearing. Margaret had advised looking composed but approachable. "Morning," Mom said stiffly when I entered the kitchen. She was already dressed too, hands wrapped around her coffee mug like a shield. "Your father's setting up the laptop in his study for later." I nodded, throat too tight for words. The hours ticked by with excruciating slowness. At 11:30, Margaret texted to confirm our pre-hearing prep at 11:45. The actual hearing would start at noon. I settled into Dad's study, trying not to fidget as our lawyer walked us through the process one last time. Julia appeared in the doorway at 11:55, makeup perfect but lips pressed white. Mom stood behind her, one hand on her shoulder. The Zoom waiting room felt endless. Then suddenly, Judge Peterson's face filled the screen, and everything accelerated like a movie on fast forward. "Having reviewed the submitted documents," she began, her voice clear and formal, "including the original trust deed dated September 15th, 2004, and the addendum letter dated October 30th, 2019, this court finds the following." My heart hammered so hard I could barely hear. Margaret's hand appeared in the corner of my screen, giving a subtle thumbs up. "The trust clause requiring continuous residence for 49 days has been satisfied by the claimant, Emily Gardner. Furthermore, the handwritten addendum clearly expresses the grantor's intention that the property pass to her eldest granddaughter. Therefore, this court recognizes Emily Gardner as the rightful owner of the property at 742 Maple Street, effective immediately." A sob caught in my throat. Not sad, not happy, just pure release. No! Julia's cry pierced the silence. This isn't fair. You can't. Dad's screen went black. The deed will be recorded with the county today, Judge Peterson continued calmly. Any current residents have 30 days to vacate, unless other arrangements are made with the new owner. This hearing is adjourned. Margaret's face filled my screen. Congratulations, Emily. We did it. She smiled warmly. I'll send the official documents within the hour. I couldn't speak. Tears blurred my vision as decades of being overlooked, pushed aside, and dismissed washed away. Through the study window, I glimpsed my reflection overlaid on the snowy yard. And for a moment, I swear I saw Granny standing behind me, nodding with that knowing smile of hers. The house was mine. Really, truly mine. Mom's heels clicked sharply as she left the room. Somewhere upstairs, a door slammed. Julia's muffled sobs echoed down the hallway. I sat there letting it all sink in. The magnitude of what just happened. The weight of what came next. The email felt heavy as I typed it, each word carrying the weight of 33 years. As discussed in today's ruling, you have until January 31st to vacate the property. I've copied my attorney to ensure clear communication. Please let me know your planned move-out date. My finger hovered over send for a full minute. You know those moments when you're about to change everything? When you can feel the universe holding its breath? That's what it felt like. I hit send. Mom's response came within hours. We'll be out by the 20th. No greeting, no sign-off, just cold efficiency. The next morning, I woke to the rumble of trucks outside. The construction crew Julia had hired to build her dream closet was back, but this time they were here to tear it down. I'd called them myself, explaining the situation. The foreman had seemed relieved. Apparently, Julia hadn't paid their final invoice. I poured my coffee and watched from the kitchen window. The January sun cast long shadows across the frost-covered lawn as workers carried out pieces of custom shelving and half-installed light fixtures. Each trip they made looked like a funeral procession for Julia's influencer dreams. A car door slammed. Julia stood in the driveway, still in her designer pajamas, phone clutched to her chest like a shield. Her face crumpled as they dismantled the marble-topped island she'd planned for her shoe collection. You can't just, she started, then saw me watching. Her mouth snapped shut. I sipped my coffee. Remember how we used to share Sunday morning cocoa in this kitchen, trading secrets and giggles before anyone else woke up? Now we couldn't even look at each other without years of resentment rising like smoke between us. My phone buzzed. A notification from the Real Tea podcast. Family drama alert. Influencer Julia Gardner exposed by sister in inheritance showdown. I clicked play before I could stop myself. The host had pulled clips from Julia's deleted videos, including the one where she'd mocked people who think inheritance is earned while lounging in my old room. They contrasted it with the footage I'd released of her real behavior during the lawsuit. Sources say multiple brands have already dropped Gardner, one host reported gleefully. Her latest sponsored post has been flooded with comments calling her entitled and fake. I glanced outside again. Julia was gone, but her car remained, probably hiding in her room doing damage control. The thought should have felt satisfying. Instead, it just felt heavy. Dad appeared in the driveway, supervising as the workers loaded the last of Julia's custom materials into their truck. He looked older somehow, shoulders curved under his winter coat. When he spotted me in the window, he quickly turned away. The rest of the week passed in a blur of cardboard boxes and careful avoidance. Mom and Dad packed methodically, room by room, while Julia made endless phone calls behind closed doors. I caught snippets sometimes. Please just let me explain. And, I know the numbers are down, but I worked remotely from Granny's old sewing room, trying to focus on marketing reports while the house slowly emptied around me. But every thud of a box being sealed, every scrape of furniture across hardwood, pulled at something in my chest. Friday morning, another podcast notification. Julia Gardner's Fall from Grace, a deep dive into the house that clout couldn't buy. This time, I didn't click. Some victories don't need an audience. Instead, I walked through the house, noting spaces where photos had hung, marks on the walls where furniture had stood for decades. In Julia's room, her vision board still clung to one wall, magazine cutouts of luxury closets and Instagram-worthy corners, all centered around my childhood home. Now it looked like a shrine to something that never was. The demolition crew had done good work. No trace remained of her planned renovations. But they couldn't remove the echoes of what our family had become. The cold silences, the sharp words, the years of chosen blindness to anyone's truth but their own. I paused in my old room, Waffles' former suite. The pastel walls would need repainting. The custom dog bed was already listed on Facebook Marketplace. Standing there, I felt the ghost of every night I'd spent believing I was somehow less worthy of space in this house. Not anymore. A door opened downstairs. Footsteps crossed the foyer, followed by the clink of keys being set in the ceramic bowl by the front door, the one I'd made in third-grade art class. Mom's voice drifted up. The movers are confirmed for Tuesday. Tuesday morning arrived with a gray dawn and the rumble of moving trucks. I watched from upstairs as 3 burly men in matching uniforms navigated dollies across our icy driveway. Mom directed them with tight gestures, pointing out which furniture belonged to whom. My phone pinged. Someone had already offered full price for Waffles' castle bed. "Can pick up today?" the message read. I typed back a quick confirmation, then set my phone aside. The house creaked and sighed around me as footsteps echoed through empty rooms. You know that hollow sound places get when they're being stripped bare? Like every corner is suddenly too big, too exposed? That's what filled the air as I wandered from room to room, trailing my fingers along familiar walls. In the kitchen, faded rectangles marked where Mom's copper pots once hung. I remembered standing on a step stool beside her, learning to crimp pie crusts. The smell of burnt apple filling the first time I tried baking solo. Mom hadn't scolded me then. She'd just helped scrape the blackened mess into the trash, showing me how to start over. When did we stop starting over? The dining room still held traces of birthday streamers in the chandelier crystals. 16 years of celebration dust, catching morning light. I could almost hear the off-key singing, see Julia's face glowing above her candles while I watched from the sidelines. Always watching, always waiting for my turn to matter. A shout from outside pulled me back. The movers were struggling with Dad's leather armchair, the one he'd dozed in every Sunday afternoon, newspaper crumpled in his lap. Now it looked smaller somehow, awkward as they maneuvered it down the front steps. I climbed to the second floor where cardboard boxes lined the hallway like sentries. Most were labeled Julia's room in Mom's precise handwriting. A few bore hasty additions, fragile and open first. Julia herself was nowhere to be seen. She'd probably timed her final exit to avoid me entirely. Classic Julia move. Dodge the hard moments. Preserve the carefully curated image. Though I guess that image wasn't worth much anymore, thanks to those leaked videos. Remember when we used to share clothes, Julia? When you'd sneak into my room to borrow sweaters, leaving little thank you notes on my pillow? I'd found one while clearing out the closet yesterday, faded purple ink declaring best sister ever. The memory stung like a paper cut. I pushed open the door to my old room, Waffles' brief kingdom. Sunlight spilled across bare floors where that ridiculous castle bed had stood. The pastel blue walls looked tired now, ready for change. Granny's voice seemed to whisper from the corners. "Make it yours again, sweetheart." My phone buzzed. The castle bed buyer was outside. I met her in the driveway, a young mom with a toddler balanced on her hip. "It's perfect," she gushed, examining the elaborate turrets. "My daughter's going through a princess phase." As they drove away, Mom emerged from the house. She paused on the porch, keys dangling from her fingers. For a moment, I thought she might speak, might finally acknowledge what we'd all lost here. Instead, she just dropped her keys into the ceramic bowl one last time and walked to her car without looking back. The movers finished around noon. Their trucks pulled away, leaving twin trails in the melting snow. The house settled into a new kind of quiet. Not the tense silence of recent weeks, but something cleaner, emptier. I stood in the foyer, surrounded by the ghosts of what we'd been. Birthday balloons and burnt pies, borrowed sweaters and broken trust. A family that had somehow forgotten how to see each other clearly. A door slammed somewhere upstairs, probably a draft catching one of the few remaining ones. The sound echoed through vacant rooms like a final punctuation mark. No dramatic confrontations, no tearful goodbyes, just ending. I climbed the stairs slowly, heading for my old room. Time to start planning its resurrection. The castle bed was gone, sold to make space for something real. Something mine. Julia's vision board still fluttered on her bedroom wall, her last mark on this house. I didn't bother taking it down. Let the cleaning crew handle it tomorrow. Some things weren't worth the energy of dismantling. Standing in my old doorway, I watched dust motes dance in the afternoon light. The room felt different already, as if it had been holding its breath all these years, waiting to exhale. Morning light streamed through naked windows as I hauled paint cans up the stairs. The hardware store clerk had raised an eyebrow when I described the exact shade I wanted, like fresh lilacs, but with a hint of dawn. But he'd mixed it perfectly. Granny would have approved. You know that feeling when you're about to erase something ugly and replace it with something beautiful? That's what hummed through my veins as I laid out drop cloths and assembled my tools. The dog-themed wallpaper, all happy puppies romping through meadows, stared back at me like a challenge. I filled a spray bottle with warm water and vinegar, just like Mom had taught me years ago. The irony wasn't lost on me. She'd shown me how to put up wallpaper in this very room when I was 13. Now I was using her technique to tear it all down. The first strip came away with a satisfying rip. Underneath, I found traces of my old wall, hints of the pale yellow I'd chosen in high school. My throat tightened. I kept working, methodically spraying and scraping, letting memories surface with each revealed patch. Some things have to be stripped bare before they can become something new, Granny used to say. Usually while pruning her rose bushes, but the wisdom fit here too. The doorbell chimed downstairs, startling me from my thoughts. Through the window, I spotted Katie Morrison's red SUV in the driveway. We'd been close in high school before life pulled us in different directions. She stood on the porch, clutching a paper bag that smelled like heaven when I opened the door. "Blueberry muffins," she announced, stepping inside. "I heard through the grapevine that you might need breakfast and an extra set of hands." I couldn't help but laugh. The grapevine being Mrs. Henderson next door? That woman hasn't missed a piece of neighborhood drama since 1982. Katie surveyed the foyer. "It feels different in here already." We climbed to my room, sharing a muffin between us. Katie whistled at the half-stripped walls. "Want some help with that?" For the next few hours, we worked in comfortable tandem, sharing gossip about old classmates between scraping sessions. The wallpaper surrendered piece by piece. My arms ached, but every clean stretch of wall felt like reclaiming territory. "Remember when we used to study in here?" Katie asked, attacking a stubborn corner. "Your grandmother would bring us hot chocolate with those tiny marshmallows." The memory hit like a warm wave. And she'd always say, "Smart girls need fuel for their brains." We finished together, dissolving into laughter. Around noon, the walls stood bare and ready for paint. Katie helped me carry Granny's portrait up from where I'd stored it in the dining room. The gilded frame caught sunlight as we positioned it carefully above the fireplace. "Perfect spot," Katie declared, stepping back to admire it. "She's keeping watch." I opened the first can of lilac paint, stirring slowly. The color swirled like summer twilight. My hands shook slightly as I poured it into the tray. "You okay?" Katie asked softly. I nodded, not trusting my voice. Some moments are too full for words. The first roller stroke felt like writing my name across the sky. Up and down, steady pressure, just like Granny taught me when we painted her garden shed together. I was crying. Had been crying for a while, probably, but smiling too. Katie worked quietly beside me, giving me space to feel whatever needed feeling. Late afternoon sun slanted through the windows by the time we finished the second coat. The room glowed with Granny's favorite color, soft and sure as a promise kept. While the paint dried, I unwrapped the small package that had arrived that morning. A bronze plaque, simply engraved with Granny's honor. "Where's that going?" Katie asked, wiping paint from her hands. I touched the doorframe gently. "Right here." So everyone who enters remembers whose blessing made this possible. Katie helped me position and mount it, the metal warm against my palm as I tightened the final screw. We stood back, admiring the whole effect. Lilac walls, Granny's portrait presiding with that knowing smile, and the plaque catching afternoon light like a wink. "It feels right," Katie said, squeezing my shoulder. "Like the room can breathe again." She was right. The space had shed its borrowed skin and emerged as something true, something that belonged to both memory and future. Morning light streamed through the freshly washed windows, painting stripes across my lilac walls. I breathed in deep, savoring the lingering scent of paint and possibility. You know that moment when you wake up and, for a split second, wonder if the good thing that happened was just a dream? That feeling had been fading a little more each morning. I padded across the room in my favorite fuzzy socks, the ones Granny had given me one Christmas, saying every lady deserves something silly and soft. The hardwood felt solid beneath my feet, nothing like the uncertain ground I'd walked these past weeks. The curtains whispered against the rod as I drew them fully open. Outside, frost decorated the maple trees, their bare branches sparkling like they'd been dipped in sugar. How many winter mornings had I watched that same view, dreaming of the day this room would truly be mine again? My coffee mug clinked against the windowsill, another piece of home restored. It was Granny's old ceramic one, complete with a chip on the rim where she'd dropped it washing dishes but refused to throw it away. Character, she'd called it, with that smile that always made me feel like we shared a secret. The bronze plaque caught morning light as I passed, making Granny's honor gleam like a benediction. I ran my fingers over the letters, a habit I'd developed in just these few days. Some people might think it melodramatic, mounting a plaque like that, but they hadn't lived through what it took to get here. My phone buzzed on the bedside table, the one I'd rescued from the attic, another piece of my past reclaimed. The Zillow alert made me pause mid-sip. Price reduced. Luxury 2BR condo. Julia's apartment. The one she'd bought when her influencer career was soaring before everything imploded. Remember those designer closets she'd started installing here? The ones torn out after the court ruling? Turned out her followers weren't impressed by someone who'd mock people who think inheritance is earned. Especially not after I released that footage. The internet has a long memory for authenticity, or the lack of it. I set my phone down beside the framed trust papers, another daily reminder, though I hardly needed one anymore. The embossed legal letterhead caught the light just like the plaque, two pieces of proof sharing the same sunbeam. Funny how official documents can carry so much weight, yet feel lighter than air when they're finally in your hands. From downstairs came the gentle tick of the grandfather clock, the one Dad had tried moving out before I stopped him. Family heirloom, I'd reminded him, showing the note in Granny's journal about it being part of the house trust. His face had gone an interesting shade of purple at that. A car door slammed somewhere down the street. Probably Mrs. Henderson heading to her morning yoga class. She'd brought me a welcome home pie last week, complete with neighborhood gossip about my parents' hasty departure. Such a shame, she'd said, not sounding sorry at all. But your grandmother would be pleased to see you here. She was right about that. I could feel Granny's approval in every corner of this room, every restored piece of our shared history. The battle that brought me here might be over, but the victory felt fresh each morning. Like these lilac walls, her favorite color, now mine too, wrapping around me in a permanent hug. Standing in this light, surrounded by everything that whispered home, I felt the last knots of tension dissolve. The house was mine now, really mine. Not just by legal right or family legacy, but by the quiet certainty that settled in my bones. Every creaky floorboard, every stubborn window latch, every memory tucked into these walls belonged exactly where it should. The bronze plaque caught another ray of sun, sending a warm flash across the room. I touched it one more time, feeling the raised letters under my fingertips as I whispered, "Some roots grow stronger when you try to rip them out." I believe stories like this find us for a reason. If this one touched you, please subscribe. I share a new one every day, and tomorrow's might be the one your heart's been waiting for.